Para aprender el español, ustedes no tienen que salir de sus casas. En verdad, podrían llegar a hablar con fluidez sin viajar a un país hispanohablante. Y en este video, les voy a dar 5 consejos para que puedan lograr eso. So the first tip is to use Pimsleur as soon as you start to learn the language. Pimsleur is a language learning tool that forces you to speak from day one. You listen to audio, respond to prompts, and repeat sentences, like so.
She says, pleased to meet you.
Muito prazer.
Muito prazer.
Now I know that early on, the idea of speaking may seem daunting, but sounding like an idiot is a necessary evil. We've all been there, it's just part of the process. Honestly, don't worry. Most of you guys watching this video are learning Spanish to speak, and this program encourages you to speak from day one. Whilst it may not be the most complete language learning program, it does exactly what it says on the tin, which is to get you to speak. What's great about Pimsleur is that you can use it practically anywhere. I use it in the gym, whilst in the shower, and on the toilet seat. And if you don't suffer from public embarrassment, you can even use it talking to yourself walking down the street. So moving on to tip 2, which relates to tip 1, you need to take as many conversational classes on Italki or a site like it as soon in the language learning process as possible. This again is to get you speaking. You're starting to recognize the common theme here, right? If the objective is to learn a language, well, you need to speak it as soon as possible. Don't wait around until you're perfect or to when you think you sound good. Nope, start speaking early on in the language learning process. This is to get you comfortable learning, understanding idioms, different accents, and different dialects. Trust me, it's the best way to go forward. Don't wait to be perfect, start speaking ASAP. Now Italki is pretty straightforward. Sign up, find a teacher, book a class, and have a conversation. I waited 3 months before having my first conversation in Spanish, which in hindsight was a big mistake. I touched on this topic in another video, 5 things I wish I knew before learning Spanish, which you can find here. In essence, if you want to learn how to speak, well, you have to speak. Sounds a bit obvious, but you won't believe how many people ignore this point. Now let's move to tip number 3. You need to get yourself a language learning program like Assimil. You don't have to use Assimil per se, you can use other programs like it, but something like this will help you to structure your learning. I personally chose to use Assimil because it was highly recommended and it was very easy to work with. Now, the beauty of Assimil is that you can do it at your own speed. The program's packed with exercises and audios that will help you with your comprehension of the language. I'd also like to throw into the mix another textbook, Read and Think Spanish. This is the book which I'm holding in the thumbnail of this video. While it's not a language learning program per se, it does a great job of getting you to think in the target language. Why I like this book in particular is because everything is structured in terms of subjects. So for example, you have vocabulary and exercises for different subjects such as music, sports, holidays, celebrations, food, and history. By having everything structured like this, it allows you to identify quickly the areas that you'd like to learn, focus on that vocabulary before moving on to other areas of the language. This makes it a lot easier to add relevant words to your vocabulary. Speaking of vocabulary, let's move to tip number 4. One thing that'll make it easier to comprehend the language is to create a list of words that relates to your intended use of the language. If you're learning Spanish for your job, well, focus on vocabulary that relates to your job. If you're learning Spanish for a holiday, well, focus on vocabulary that relates to a holiday. What you want to do early on is identify why you're learning the language and focus on vocabulary which fits that specific need. Eventually you'll want to know it all, but to start out, it makes sense to focus on the why and then go from there. Now, the 5th and final tip to quickly and effectively learn Spanish from home is to go and socialize with Spanish speakers in your hometown. If you don't have any, I'm sorry. But for those of you living in London, New York, or Toronto, what's your excuse? By going to a place where there are lots of Spanish speakers, believe it or not, you'll be forced to speak Spanish. This is a great way to train your ears, comprehend different accents, and truly understand the day-to-day speak of people who speak Spanish. You might even bag yourself a Spanish-speaking partner, and we all know that in relationships there are arguments, and if you can argue clearly in Spanish, get your point across and understand everything your partner's saying to you, you're off to a good start. So there you have it, 5 pro tips if you want to learn Spanish from home. If you like this video, then check out my other video, How I Became Fluent in Spanish in Just 6 Months, up here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more language learning tips and tricks. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.